Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I am the Sovereign, and this is my court. If this is your first time in attendance, hello. Please consider hitting the subscribe button before you leave our kingdom. Last week was driving me nuts. I really wanted to do this video. I wanted to talk about fashion and just like fun pageant stuff. And then Washington decided to have their mishap. And then they had the misogynist who wanted to bring Chesley into his nonsense. And I was just like, I just want to have happy, fun pageant content, please. Sometimes I don't really get to choose what I talk about. Like sometimes I have no choice but to address issues, and a lot of the time the issues are not positive. I've been dying for some fun, positive energy, and I mean, I'm not exactly sure how this is gonna turn out because today we are discussing Miss Universe 2012. I don't know, for me, the discussion is gonna be super fun. I know some people are super emotional. Guys, this is a past competition, and like Miss Universe is fun. Pageants are for fun, okay? Calm down. So, this is one of my most highly requested videos. This video was so requested that when I thought about doing it, I had to do another video in preparation to do this video. This video requires that you have seen my IMG era versus Trump era video. I did that video on purpose, and that video's purpose was to talk about this video. And this video is really a discussion of the United States versus the Philippines. Jeanine Tugonon versus Olivia Culpo. People have been asking me to talk about this for so long. And now I think us as a community and as a court, we are ready to talk about one of the most tragic losses the Philippines has ever been saddled with. I don't think they've ever let it go. And just to be right into it right now, because I know what some of you are looking for, I totally understand why the Philippines hasn't let it go. I totally understand why you guys just cannot live this down. You cannot let go of Jeanine and this win. I get it. Because in my current mindset right now, looking at the competition, I'd have crowned her too. Now, wait, before, the sensitive people start firing off hate messages and stuff. Olivia Culpo, by the way, you're amazing, and I'm not disputing your win. And I still follow her. I've been following her for years, okay? So it's not hate to Olivia Culpo, and I'm not disputing her win. So some of you are like, okay, well, how are you saying you would crown Jeanine, but you're not disputing Olivia's win? Let's talk about it. During Miss Universe 2012, Jeanine was so consistent. She was so consistent, and she was very well trained. Now, the first thing you have to understand about this competition is that it is a different era. It's kind of like 80s fashion versus today's fashion. The standards were different in the 80s, clearly. During Trump era, the standard was a very airbrushed version of a woman. They wanted a very perfected, polished queen, something that we largely have given up in the IMG era, where we want more personality, where we want to see the women be more true to who they are. Now, when I was a teenager watching this competition, I was not as interested in Miss Universe as a teenager because I saw the competition as really being inauthentic. I could tell, as women generally can, I could tell that the ladies weren't being themselves. I could tell that they were kind of being forced into being perfectly prissy little Barbies. And though I liked pageantry at that time, I wasn't like super invested because Trump era, though it put on a great performance, a great show, the performances of the queens were a little bit off-putting to me. As a female, I want to see a woman be able to be true to who she is, not forced to be perfect and pretty and polished and all that stuff. But like I said, it's important to understand the standards when we're discussing this competition. Jeanine really put on a very polished type of performance, a very Trump era performance. In today's standards, I would have criticized this swimsuit performance because Jeanine has no natural fluctuation or variation in her face. But because it's Trump era, that is actually the standard. That is what is expected. They're expecting a very just, I'm a Barbie girl, I'm a classic pageant queen type of presentation. They didn't want much flavor, much attitude. Trump didn't really like attitude-ish women. Yeah, he wasn't exactly the strongest man. So it's just, we talked about this. Trump era queens were very reflective of what Trump personally liked, which is why we saw a lot of Eastern European women making it a lot farther than they do today. But though Jeanine still was giving a very polished, airbrush type of facial movement and or lack of movement, and a very like perfected smile. Her actual performance, technique wise, technical wise, was very flawless, very smooth, extremely graceful and elegant. I'm to this day baffled that color worked on her, but it did. It's not a color I would have put Janine in. She was a very unique standout queen. And I mean, she is first runner up. So it's not like she was completely overlooked. She wasn't. Olivia, in my opinion, at this time, did not, technique wise, she did not have the ability to go toe to toe with Janine. If we're judging specifically on technique and technical skills, Janine wins that battle hands down. I watched, of course I did, both performances, and I've rewatched them, and I've rewatched Olivia and her swimwear performance. You guys know me well enough to know I would have criticized the hell out of the swimwear and evening gown. I think both ladies did a lot better in evening gown than they did in swimwear, but Olivia's swimwear wasn't, in my view, that great. Now, once again, Trump era, but technical wise, it still wasn't there. And I think a lot of the Filipino fan base picks up on that. You guys have always been very meticulous with technique. So seeing Olivia come out the winner with, subpar technique compared to Janine probably really bugged you guys. As a teenager, it used to baffle me watching Trump era pageants why the women didn't have more personality. Like, as a teenager, because I wasn't an educated pageant fan at the time. I was just like a normal fan that wasn't too, dedicated and in depth. I was watching Trump era pageants like, why are these queens so boring? Like, why are these girls so boring? Why are they coming off so plastic? Because I personally wanted to see more personality and flavor, and I wanted to see the women have fun and be who they were. At the time, I didn't realize that was the standard that the Trump era imposed on the queens. And as I became educated and I better educated myself, I got my doctorate in pageantry. I'm the only person to have done so or gotten the degree, just me. As I got my doctorate in pageantry and studying the queens as I did, Paulina Vega is really the queen that helped me nail it down, because I know that Paulina Vega has an incredible personality. I know that she is so much fun. I know that she is a funny girl. She's just funny. To this day, she's amazingly personable. If she had her own show, I'd probably watch it. And being a follower of Olivia Culpo to this day, I know that she is a lot more saucy than she behaved in that pageant. So it always baffled me as to why these girls were holding back on their natural personality the way that they did during Trump era pageants. And then I came to the realization it is the standard of the Trump pageants that these women are trying to adhere to. In watching this competition, you really have to keep in mind what Trump specifically has always been looking for, not just personality-wise or performance-wise, but even looks-wise. I think everybody knows that when it came to pageant queens, he could be incredibly vain. He had publicly criticized one queen for gaining weight and called her Miss Piggy. He had a very specific look that he liked, and it was usually an Eastern European look. Now, one thing I can credit to Olivia Culpo, which I really think kind of maybe helped her, other than her look, I do think Olivia Culpo had a look that was more Trump style, something that he personally liked, something that he was personally attracted to. I think Olivia possessed that look. Look at Melania Trump. Tell me you don't look at early pictures of Melania Trump and see similarities between Melania and Olivia Culpo. Olivia Culpo's look is just something that Trump has always personally liked. But another thing Olivia possessed was a very girlish innocence about her. Her personality came off as very innocent. Trump likes that. They have always preferred a very demure queen, a very soft queen, a very youthful-esque innocence about their queens. And Olivia possessed that. You can see that during Evening Gown. Even when she tripped, she kind of had a fun girly giggle and she kept on going. But everything about Olivia's performances a lot of the times came off very innocent, youthful. The points about Olivia Culpo's personality can really be seen in Top 5 Q&A. When Janine answered her question, she gave a very impactful, powerful statement. It didn't come off as rehearsed. It was a good answer. However, When Olivia gave her answer, it felt really real. It felt really authentic. It felt extremely honest. She had the audience engaged. She had everyone laughing and giggling, and it was relatable. I think her natural personality gave her major bonus points in the eyes of the fan base and the judges. We have discussed this in previous videos. What matters in Q&A is not always specifically only your answer, but also how your answer is delivered. Olivia made an impact, an empathetic connection with everybody around her by being relatable and real and authentic and kind of funny, and she won. Jeanine, on the other hand, had an air of strength and confidence. She didn't overly do it, but you can clearly see that when you look at Jeanine, you're thinking like pure womanhood. Now think of the way I just described these two different competitors. This is kind of the same way I described the IMG era versus the Trump era in the video. The IMG era is basically judged on what women think is beautiful and sexy and wonderful. The Trump era is basically judged on what men would perceive as beautiful and sexy and wonderful. Jeanine very much performed in more of an IMG era, and Olivia performed more in the era and style of Trump. And I think this is probably why Olivia kind of got a kick up to that first place and the crown. Olivia, I think, has the ability to have more of a personality, to be a little bit more saucy and flavorful and fun and fierce and ferocious. If we had her on stage today, she would not give the same performance. But she knew the standards that she had to adhere to and use them to her advantage. She performed in the style of Trump. I think Jeanine was probably a little bit more true to who she was. Jeanine she comes off as a bit more strong. She has a bit more strength. And she didn't really dim that. She didn't really pull back on that. She wasn't playing pretty princess on stage. She wasn't playing soft. She didn't want to do the damsel in distress thing. She said, I'm going to be a woman on the stage. I'm going to be an elegant, poised woman, but I'm going to be a full, strong, confident woman. She pulled an IMG performance, or more of an IMG performance, on a Trump stage. And I think that's what pisses off a lot of the Filipino fan base. Philippines, I think, has always been better suited to an IMG style. The Philippines, when they send queens, their coaches are very creative. You're very technically skilled, but you're also very creative, and you allow the women to be more of who they are. You more so perfect their styles of performance to their own personality, which is good. I think that's why Philippines does so well today, is because they're not trying to force these women so much to conform to one style. They let them be themselves. I think Jeanine was a lot more of herself during the competition and didn't necessarily conform so much to the Trump style. And Trump is personally going to be drawn to a woman who's, number one, more of a look that he likes, but also more of an attitude and a demure personality that is more his style. He just likes a gentle, softer, youthful-esque, innocent type of queen. And I understand why this loss is so hard to take for the Philippines, because I didn't understand it either. When I went and watched the 2012 competition and Jeanine didn't win, I didn't understand it either, because in my mind, because my mind operates on more of an IMG type of standard. I like the personality. I like the women to be themselves. I like the authenticity. Jeanine was giving the personality. She had the technique. She had the flavor. She had the everything. And in my mind, Jeanine was the winner. If you guys had seen me do a reaction video to 2012, it would have been Jeanine all day, because she was just like, and see, this is what I have no problem. Even in retrospect, I will tell you guys the honest truth. Even years after a competition, I'll still tell you the truth. And I wouldn't have chosen Olivia as my winner, but I would not have been judging on Trump era standards. I naturally judge on an IMG standard. Now, if I had been judging on a Trump era standard, because you do have to be able to adjust your own standards to suit the competition. Like if I'm looking at Miss America If I'm looking at a Miss America competition, I'm not going to judge the competition on Miss Grand standards. That is ridiculous. So you do have to have the ability to adjust your own personal bias and look at the standards of what that pageant is looking for. So in our imagination, okay, Trump would never do this. He would never do this. But let's say in our imagination, 2012, when I'm a teenager, Donald Trump asked Dayvana to be a judge. And he said, you know, judge on my standards. This is what I want. I have to abide by those rules and give the pageant what they're looking for. So if I was judging by Trump era standards, I had to choose between these two competitors. It's Olivia, hands down. She is the queen that more so matches what Trump is looking for, which is very demure and polished and gentle and just lack of flavor and personality, just very bland. I'm sorry, it's very basic. Trump era standards are very basic. Yes, it is very graceful and elegant. It's almost giving me classic Cinderella. But I mean, I need a little spice in my life. I need a little bit of Elsa. You gotta give me a little something. And here, this is where the fury is. I get it. I totally get it. Janine, she's a queen. She is a queen. She's a queen. She was just an IMG queen and a Trump era, and it just didn't work at that time. And it stinks. It sucks. I know, Philippines. I was right there with you. Because like I said, personally, I'd have crowned Janine. But I understand why Olivia won. Understanding this pageant is just understanding the different standards of what certain pageants are looking for. And this is why I tell ladies in my DMs, okay? If you're joining a pageant and you're going into a pageant, make sure you know what that pageant is looking for, and it's not going to contrast or contradict who you are as a person. Don't be a very demure queen going into Miss Grand International. It's not gonna work. I want the best for you. Pick the pageant that's better suited to who you are, because the standards do matter and they are not the same across every pageant. Hello, NAM, Miss United States. There's a lot of pageants that have different standards and different things they're looking for. So make sure you look at past winners, how they won, what they did, what they wore. Check out the pageant you're entering before you step foot on there. And as a fan, make sure you understand what the pageant is looking for yourself when you're watching, so you don't get upset if your fave doesn't win. Because I don't care how good a woman is. If you put a Miss Grand International top 10 competitor on like a Miss America stage or something, she's probably not gonna make finals, okay? Let's just be honest. The standards do matter. So research beforehand, before you get invested in a pageant or before you start watching a pageant. You need to understand how it's gonna work, all right? In the comment section below, let me know what you thought about the 2012 Miss Universe competition. Who was your favorite? How did you think the rankings were going to differ from how they actually ended up? Was Janine your pick for favorite? Do you understand better now why she wasn't chosen? Does it still infuriate you? We all still love Olivia Culpo. Proclaim your love. She is still a Miss Universe, and Olivia is still killing it. I saw that girl's abs today. Good Lord. Olivia Culpo. Still queening, she still got it. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up. And remember, I love you and I will miss you, but I will be back in a future video. Bye.